Hey, well, we're pleased to be joined by one of the best in the business, Tony Basilio. You know him from the Tony Basilio Show, of course, TonyBasilio.com. Tony, how you doing, brother?
Michael, if I was any better, it'd be five of me and I'd be hanging out with you right now.
I just got done listening to your show. I want to ask you a little bit about that. You just had Casey Clausen on the show, the Florida Gator Terminator, so to speak. This is the week every Tennessee fan gets up for. I can't imagine how much fun you're having this week on your show.
Well, it's more fun than past years because Tennessee comes into this game as a double-digit favorite, which I don't know since I've been here, and I've been doing this for close to 30 years. I don't know that that's ever occurred. I mean, they've been double-digit underdogs in this thing before, but they're clearly better than this Florida team. This Tennessee fan base desperately needs this team to win Saturday just to kind of validate that this thing's heading in the right direction, because if Tennessee fails Saturday, it'll be 17 out of 18 years they would have lost to this Florida team. And it's one thing to lose 17 out of 18 years to Alabama or to Georgia or to anybody that's contending, in college football or near the top of the sport. Florida's been a middling football team for a decent part. I mean, Florida fans listening to your podcast would admit that. I mean, they've won a couple divisions, but, they've gone through several coaches. And Tennessee has invented ways to lose this game. And, I've been saying on the air, I think Tennessee's going to win. And one of the reasons why I really think they're going to win is I just think it's time. I think sometimes in sports, you get to that spot where it's time. And I think that's what's going on here.
And does anybody need this win more than Josh Heupel with the building of his program?
That's a great point. In one way, I don't think if Tennessee fails, which I don't think they're going to fail, but if that were to happen, I don't think it's like some terrible indictment of Josh Heupel. What it is, though, it's an opportunity for him. And it's really a no-risk opportunity for him because he's only in his second year. And when he got here, this thing was woefully broken, woefully understaffed from a talent perspective. A bunch of broken spirits on that team had come back. Jeremy Pruitt was just a horrendous head coach. He had no idea what he was doing. He was just really bad. The guy before him, Butch Jones, was just a maniac. And so, Pruitt, Heupel's come into a spot here where it was going to be very difficult not to look excellent by comparison. You win Saturday in front of what will be a packed house with a ton of recruits on hand, and you really jumpstart your rebuilding process. I think it moves it up a couple of years. I really do.
Are you surprised at all? He's cutting jokes in the press conference. He seems cool and calm and collected as can be. I'm surprised seeing it from a Tennessee coach just because I don't know that I've seen that since Fulmer. But that probably speaks to just his confidence and his swagger heading into this matchup, don't you think?
We were talking today off the air, and I was telling my guys before we got started, we do a little meeting before we get going, just so we can go over like what we're going to talk about. I like to keep it as spontaneous as possible, but I do like to tell them, hey, this is what I'm hearing. And then, hey, let's compare notes. What are you hearing? One of the things I conveyed to them was the staff is extremely confident about this game. Extremely confident about this game. The players are very, very confident about this game. And then the fan base is traumatized. Players and staff know, though, that this game for Tennessee is about executing. So, and I think Tennessee is going to execute. I think they're going to play well.
Yeah, and you had Casey Clausen, former Tennessee quarterback, of course, on your show today. Go back. I recommend the audience. Really great interview there with Tony. And he said something that I had just never crossed my mind, that, we all know the demons with this series, but this generation of player does not carry that with them. I mean, heck, the starting left tackle for Tennessee used to play for Florida. I mean, with the transfer portal, with everything that college football is now, I don't think that emanates down to the roster at all. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I still think it's human beings playing. I don't know, because this has been a very befuddling series down through the years, and Tennessee's just found ways to lose. I will say that Casey made an interesting point. The thing about the portal is, right, the portal has allowed you to rebuild your team a lot quicker than before. And also in this era we're getting ready to jump in, where we're throwing away so many rivalries. Like the Southeastern Conference schedule is going to be reworked, as we all know. And I don't think Florida's going to be in Tennessee's pod when they announce how they're going to do that. And so, the slate for a lot of this is going to be wiped clean, because a lot of these things that we've found to be traditional are going to go away. And the sport's more going to mirror its NFL counterpart, which, I mean, we can make a case, well, is that better or worse? Right now in college football, and Tennessee just announced their schedule for next year, there are so many horrendous games on that schedule next year. And, I mean, the old adage of little sisters of the poor, I was expecting to see them in week 11. I mean, there were just so many throwaway games. College football has to be careful, Mike, in my opinion, with regards to got to give me some good matchups. Got to give us something to watch. Last weekend, for instance, last weekend was not a great week for college football. I love the game. I know you love it too. But I don't like turning on TV and seeing a bunch of blowouts. Mm-hmm. So that's why this Tennessee-Florida game is going to be very compelling. I do think there's the path where Tennessee really puts it on this team this weekend, though. I really do. And one thing Casey said back to that interview, which you can hear over at tclub.team, my website. Again, it's tclub.team. We're going to be live as soon as all these games go final. We're live over there. I would bet you if Tennessee wins, we'll go on the air about 7. I would bet you I'm on till 4 o'clock in the morning, probably 8 or 9 hours. Now you're chuckling at that, but to your audience, am I lying when I say that?
No, you've gone longer than that. I know you have, and I just think it's amazing. Yeah. You're the only one that I know that does it, and I don't know how you do it, but again, and this is, you got callers nonstop. This is not just you sitting here spieling. This is you.
Yeah,
with
about
100 different people.
Well, I have thousands of people listening all over the world, and the more we go into the wee small hours of the morning, the more inebriated and crazy people get. And if Tennessee wins the game, probably going to do an 8-hour post game. And if Tennessee loses, probably going to be on until Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern time when my show starts.
Right.
Because people are going to be so tore up if they lose this game. I mean, Mike, I have personally walked out on that wire. I've talked more trash. I told myself I was never going to do this again in this Florida series, because it's really foolish and it's a fool's errand, and Tennessee's lost 16 of 17 games. But this matchup is such, and Florida has such a dearth of playmakers, and they're in such a tweener year just in terms of they have Billy Napier, who plays all close games anyway. So he wants to be in close games anyway. Right. Even when he's much better than you, he holds it down and everything's close, and to the wire. And Tennessee will beat Florida playing that way. And Tennessee will beat Florida if it turns into a slugfest, scoring type game. There's no way Florida has the playmakers to keep pace with Tennessee, even with Tennessee's best receiver, Cedric Tillman, missing this game, which I think he's going to miss the game. I'm almost certain he's going to miss the game.
All right, you referenced the confidence from the coaching staff. Is it? I mean, dare I say they're so confident? I know they'll play Cedric Tillman if he was 100%, if he was healthy. I get it, but are they so confident they feel like they can win this game without him? You think?
I'm not. I asked that question. Here's what I was told. We, right now, unless he has a miraculous recovery, we don't want it because he got banged up in his ankle and his knee on some different plays.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to further injure him and thus not have him the rest of the way. So, does that mean they think they can win the game without him? I mean, it sounds to me like if need be, he could play. The truth is, they've got the Holiday and the Callaway and this guy and that guy. The problem is that he, so far this season, is averaging way into double digits in targets. The last real game they played, he had 18 targets at Pittsburgh, which you and I both know, that's an enormous number to throw the ball 18 times at one wide receiver. And it only speaks to one thing, which is he's Hendon Hooker's safety blanket. He is, it's his blanket, and going to be without him in a really big game. It looks like he's going to be without him.
How good is this Tennessee defense, Tony? Are you buying? Their numbers look great, but they haven't played anybody.
No, I'm not buying that. The defense is not very good. The issue with the defense is, look, I keep it real, okay? Caden Slovis was over 200 yards passing in the first half of that game at Pittsburgh a few weeks back. Caden Slovis got injured. Tennessee knocked him out of the game. They hit him several times and knocked him out of the game. And that's part of the sport. Caden Slovis does not get knocked out of the game. See, I keep it real, and this makes my listeners mad from time to time because I'm totally drinking the Kool-Aid on this Florida game, but I'm also going to keep it real with you. Tennessee's defense that day in space was not good. They allowed a long run. They allowed a couple long catches and runs. They take bad angles, pursuit angles. If I believed that Florida had the wherewithal on the perimeter, I wouldn't be talking like this. But Florida doesn't. Florida doesn't. Last week in the South Florida game, there was a ball that went up in the air. And not only didn't the Florida receiver on the play, a former five-star kid, not only did he, what's the kid's name? Not only didn't he
Shorter?
make a catch, Shorter. He didn't even knock the ball down.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, Shorter. And, he's a decorated veteran receiver. Like, you got to help your quarterback out there. And so I look at that Florida team and I go, not a lot of ball skill. You got a freshman quarterback, despite that he played last year, but Anthony Richardson, for all intents and purposes, has never played a road game. That's a freshman quarterback in a first-year system. Going on the road, they're missing their middle linebacker, who's the quarterback of their defense. This would be the most painful loss of them all by far if Florida figured out a way to beat Tennessee, because I just don't see it happening.
Does Anthony Richardson scare you at all? I mean, or not at all?
Yeah, if he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what we don't know. Have they not been running him for the last 6 quarters of football because he took a couple of really hard hits in the Kentucky game and it hurt him? Subsequently, they lost the game, but he quit doing Anthony Richardson things in that game after he got hit twice really hard. And then some would say, well, they knew they could beat South Florida last week by just keeping him back there and not letting him run. I don't buy that. I mean, if South Florida executes, the Florida Gators are 1-2 right now with a loss to South Florida, which would have been just a horrible result for them. You tell me. I don't think football staffs say, okay, well, we're just not going to run this guy today. We're going to save him for Tennessee because we can get through this game. And meanwhile, we've got an opponent that's rushed for over 300 yards on us, and we didn't run him at all last week. I think what it is They don't trust their backups. Billy Napier at his teleconference a few minutes ago said that the Kit and the Kid had a really great practice this week. I buy that. I mean, sure. You think that Kit and the Kid's going to play in this game Saturday? You think they want that Kit and the Kid to play in this game Saturday?
No.
That'd be negative. So, at the end of the day, this is going to be a Richardson. Is he hurt? Were they keeping him under wraps? Did they almost walk off the cliff keeping him under wraps? I'll say this. If they almost walked off the cliff last week, keeping him under wraps, they're better poker players than I give them credit for. I think the guy's really banged up.
Now, Hendon Hooker's been a little high on some of his throws. He's been a little inaccurate to start games. He's been red hot, after the first quarter, so to speak. But does that concern you at all?
Yeah.
Especially for a game like this. I mean, how could you not be hyped up going into this?
Well, you have a good point. And Tennessee needs to start this game well. I think a lot of times when you get in one of these series where one team owns another, I think a lot of times it can be a disadvantage to play in your own building. If you don't start that game well, all of a sudden the negative energy of that crowd, walk in there, it's everybody's going crazy. And then all of a sudden, start the game off poorly, fumble early on, Florida goes down there and scores. All of a sudden, and then Tennessee comes out on offense and goes, 3 and out or whatever, something like that. All of a sudden, that stadium gets awfully quiet, and a lot of that pressure is transferred to that young team. So these guys really have to start well and, knock that stuff out.
Now, last thing for you, Tony, really appreciate your time. What's your favorite Tennessee-Florida memory?
The year of 9/11, I was down there in December. We used to do a simulcast back in the day where we would put my show on a Florida station, and then we would put Steve Russell down there. We'd put his show on my airwaves, and we would kind of go back and forth and have fun with it. And that's pre-internet days, or early advent of the internet, before everybody was streaming. So long ago. We drove all the way down for that game in December. I had walking pneumonia. This is a true story. I had walking pneumonia. My doctor kind of advised me not to go. I remember sleeping in a dingy hotel down there, drinking codeine, that codeine cough syrup stuff to sleep. That, I guess they call it the Zizerp stuff, they mix with, they like to mix with drinks. Anyway, after that game, I'm set up on the top roof. This is true. Of an old establishment there called the Purple Porpoise, right off the Gainesville Avenue strip. And Tennessee fans figured out where that secret hatch was. And the guy there was pretty cool. And he let a bunch of people come up there. And I'm doing a radio show back to Knoxville with a bunch of Tennessee people that wouldn't behave and were taunting these Florida fans as they were walking out of there. And we were getting things thrown at us. We were getting flipped off. We were getting threatened. We were getting come down from there. I'm going to beat your ass and everything in between. And, the passion and the pageantry of doing this, that's my favorite memory of the series. And it's not so much, the winning, because Tennessee gave it right back next week, against LSU. Mm-hmm. It was the craziness of the moment and the thought of, because Steve Spurrier left right after that. And the series after that was never as fun after Spurrier left. It was never. But for those 10 or 11 years there from 1990, they played. And then when they put them in the same division and they played every year, I mean, there was nothing like that Tennessee-Florida game back in the 90s. And the funny thing about that 2001 game was Tennessee went off that day as a 17-point underdog. So there was just a lot about that screamed college football. And being on the roof of that old place called the Purple Porpoise, that'll never be forgotten by this living fan. I will tell you that.
All right, great stuff from Tony Basilio. Got to check out the Tony Basilio, especially after this Florida game. Tell the audience one more time, where can they get that?
tclub.team, the letter T, C-L-U-B, tclub.team. And I promise you this, win, lose, or draw, Saturday's program is going to be off the chain nuts.
I'll be tuning in. I know that. I'll promise you that.
Michael Bratton, I love you. I appreciate, and congratulations on your success, man. I was looking at a sheet the other day that tells me that you got the fastest growing deal in the Southeast right now. So congratulations on everything you've done.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you, taking this time, and man, you truly are the best. I don't forget. You've been a fan of mine for a long, long time, and I'll never forget it.
You better believe it. I love you, man. I appreciate you.
I told y'all this interview did not disappoint, and man, how many? I mean, there's just not many characters quite like Tony Basilio out there in the SEC landscape. And yeah, I hope you get a sense of that. I hope you check out his show after this Florida game. Like he said, win, lose, or draw. God, it's a shit show up there. I mean, this is the show that these Kentucky people have found it when they beat Tennessee. God, I think they watch it all night long to just hear people cry and break stuff. I mean, it's a wild, wild show. Tony he's kind of like free therapy up in East Tennessee. So I cannot recommend him enough. And then we also got Ty Richardson, ESPN Arkansas.